Hello and welcome to Lesson 51. Give up your right, so-called right, to lie and steal. Dear ladies, I have started numbering these lessons at 51 so as to allow plenty more lessons to be written and published as the book evolves over time. I expect that the book will evolve over time, so we're going to number the lessons on law and legislation to start at 51 and we will progress them from there. Okay? That's just by way of explanation. In my first book, Living Free in the Feminazi World, I created the remedy for men to live in freedom, even though you women are demanding that those who wish to have your vote act as your own personal thugs and gangsters to steal from men. One of the most disastrous things ever to happen to Western women was for them to entirely ignore the remedy that was presented in Living Free in the Feminazi World. It was disastrous because the remedy that was presented was simple, easy, non-controversial, cooperative, collaborative, and peaceful. Thousands upon thousands of women saw the remedy. They downloaded the book, they read it, they asked questions. Then, 201, they decided they did not want a simple, easy, non-controversial, cooperative, collaborative, and peaceful solution to the issues at hand. They decided, 201, that they wanted to keep their privilege of having the right to invite a clearly criminal cartel, the family law courts, into the marriage to destroy the man's life, to steal his children, and to plunder the proceeds of his life's work. I can assure every one of you, dear ladies, that the fact that not even one woman in the West was prepared to stand up and say in public in her own name, Peter is right. We should renounce this alleged right to lie and steal, for if we do not denounce the opportunity to lie and steal from our husbands, they will believe us to wish to have this opportunity to lie and steal from them in the future. Not one woman said that, not even one. And it's been more than 3 years. And so it has come to pass. With the publication of The Truth Be Told, we are making it very clear to the young men that their female peers who are claiming that they would wish to be married and have children are not willing to give up the opportunity to do to the young men exactly what their mother's generation did to their fathers. As my former stepson Jared Robinson said, I will never get married. After seeing how my mother treated my father and how she treated you, I will never ever marry. I might get a wife like my mother. Ouch, eh? When your own son uses you as the example as to why he would never marry, that's got to hurt, right? The problem you have now, dear ladies, is that the women of the older generation, like Jennifer, 50, and her mother, 70, have openly supported and condoned women committing the crimes of perjury, kidnapping, extortion, theft, and child abuse against men of my generation. Further, the men of my generation, 50, and my father's generation, 77, have also openly supported and condoned women committing the crimes of perjury, kidnapping, extortion, theft, and child abuse against men of my generation. And now, young women in their 20s and perhaps 30s are looking for good husbands. For some reason, these young women are surprised at the lack of interest by young men to have their children stolen, their houses stolen, their businesses destroyed, and then to be hated on if they complain about their criminal victimization. Young women are surprised that men don't want to sign up for that. How about that? I am a wonderful example of how women will endlessly lie about the best of the best husbands, a man who is widely acknowledged as the best of the best husbands, merely to try and forgive the crimes of an adulterous, prostitute, criminal, child-abusing woman. Western women have lied endlessly about me so as to try and slur and muddy my good name in an effort to shut him up for exposing the crimes of Jennifer and her associates in the criminal family law system. Dear ladies, you have failed to shut him up. Not only that, many thousands of young men, perhaps tens of thousands of young men, have read The Truth Be Told and learned just how badly their futures have been betrayed. They are not going to step up to marriage and children in any significant number. Most certainly the quality men are fleeing the West in large numbers and marrying Eastern European women and Asian women. There is a There are whole websites dedicated to leaving the West and discussing the issues of doing so, like Happier Abroad, and the link is there. This site is run by a friend of mine, Winston Wu. The fact that it is now ranked worldwide at 61,000 tells you that this is a popular topic in and of itself. The number one reason men are talking about leaving the West and living elsewhere is that there is no prospect of raising a family in the West. The men say, and I agree with them, that the women in the West are mostly unsuitable for marriage and children, and so they are looking further afield for women who might be interested in marriage and children. In short, dear ladies, your men are voting with their feet and their wallets. They are leaving the West in large numbers. They are importing foreign wives. They are avoiding marriage altogether. They are doing all these things in larger and larger numbers, and the trend is only just beginning. It has a long way to run yet. In the 2006 census in Australia, there were fewer married women than single women for the first time since the aftermath of World War I. Men are not marrying. The Australian government has attempted to respond by declaring any two people who live together to be legally married. This has resulted in many men kicking the women out of the house because of the criminality of the Australian family law courts that routinely award 95% of assets to the woman even if no paternity test is performed on the children, as was my case. Such crimes of theft are supported by all members of both Houses of Parliament. There are no dissenting voices in the political, legal or police sphere at the blatant stealing of a man's house. My case has been put in front of everyone who counts in Australia, and they have been asked to perform their duties where the person is a paid public servant who has duties related to ensuring the just application of the legislation. The Attorney General won't do that. No public servant will act, meaning their delegated responsibility must be taken back from them, and new courts must be created and new peace officers must be sworn in to perform the role of peace officer. The important message for you to understand, my dear lady, who wishes to be a good wife, either today or in the future, is that the quality men know and understand that you support this state of affairs, because you have not spoken out and you have taken no action to remedy this state of affairs. The quality men have taken note. In the region of the younger men, this means that they are not willing to take a risk with their life and wind up in the same place as I finished up. Impoverished and suicidal from criminal abuse, disowning my former children who I loved very much, and the betrayal of all those who I could have reasonably expected to assist me. That is not an appealing prospect for a 20-something man. And even in the face of us men presenting you Western women with all this evidence and all the reasons behind the marriage strike, what has been your response in the main? It has been more hatred, more man-bashing, more criticism, more shaming language. Indeed, your response has been everything but listening, understanding, sympathy, empathy, and a willingness to live up to your claims of equality. Right about now, dear ladies, your claim that women are, quote, better communicators, unquote, is one of the most laughable claims in all of history, and us quality men know this to be true. Now, dear lady, you can be as angry as you want to be. You can call me all the names you want. It does not matter to me. I left the West and I live in Germany. In Germany, the women are lovely. I have had relationships with women here that I never dreamed was possible. Women here have been angels compared to Jennifer. And I am telling men in the West that Germany and places further east are good places to move to if you want to marry and have children. I point out to the men that live in the West might be a little more humble in these countries. I point out to the men that might be a little bit more humble in these countries, but at least you will. I point out to men that life might be a little bit more humble in these countries, but at least you'll be able to raise your own children, and that it is very unlikely they will go through the same experiences as me. After all, in the West, A man like me, who can be very successful in his career and has been well paid for his career, can be kicked to the curb with $20,000 US as the proceeds of his 25 years of labour and told that this is 100% acceptable by every member of his family, his friends, his relatives, and the wider social groups, the police, the legal fraternity, and the entire membership of his parliament. Here's $20,000 for your 25 years of effort. Get the hell out of here. That's what he can be told. That's how that works. All those people agree with what happened in my case, and that is what we are telling the young men. If you think you can find a quality young man to marry once he knows these are the facts of the matter, good luck to you. The world is about to change for women. The quality men are going to leave the West in droves or import foreign wives in droves, and you are going to be left with what you so richly deserve. The players and the men who will use game on you to seduce you with no intention of marrying you. Men are going to allow other men to lie to you, and they will not warn you. And if you think this is not coming your way, I will again refer you to Return of Kings. Return of Kings is warning women of what is coming, and the fact it has made it to be ranked 11,000 worldwide should tell you that the opinions of the men on ROK are resonating with millions of young men. Return of Kings has run some unique initiatives, Fat Shaming Week and Return to the Kitchen, as part of a series of 20 articles pointing out that traditional sex roles are preferable to men, and have made it clear that the men are speaking loudly and clearly. They are to be ignored at your own peril and your own cost. That is why this book is due now. There is a palpable sense of change in the air in the West. The men are speaking up and fighting back in numbers for the first time. Those of us who were pioneers in speaking out publicly in our own names are now seeing hundreds of thousands of men echo our comments. It is a voice that cannot be ignored, though many women are going to try to. They are not going back to the old. There is no going back to the old paradigm. There is no chance in the world that traditional gender roles are going to return in any significant way or any significant number. There are very few quality men who will take the word of a woman for anything. Indeed, in my books, I have rated rule number one to never trust a woman about anything. Never confide in her, never put her in a position where she can injure your interests. This is the way of the future. The days where men could trust the discretion of their wives and trust that they would not attack them are over. They were ended by the endless perjury of women in the family law courts, revealing all sorts of personal and private details for their own benefit, as well as telling lies. They were ended by the endless stealing of children and stealing of houses that women indulged in. There is not a quality man alive in the West who has any sense at all who would trust his wife. And that's sad, in my opinion. And because he knows that he simply cannot trust her, he will swear blind that he does trust her and then simply not allow her to know anything that she can use in a court to injure him. The level of distrust has been well earned. It will be translated to the women who are in their 20s and 30s in the West. The women who move first to take on the remedies presented in this book will be the women who just might be able to land a quality man. However, if women do not move in the direction of the remedies presented in this book, the quality men will notice this continued reluctance to take up the remedy that has been available for 3 years now, and they will act accordingly. Namely, their assessment of your credibility levels will continue to fall if that is at all possible. So, dear lady, the next series of lessons are lessons in law and legislation that you might choose to use so as to start the long journey of re-establishing the credibility of yourself as an individual and Western women as a group in general. Because you can rest assured today that quality men know and understand that Western women have very little credibility behind what they say at all. And with that, before we go into these affidavits, we'll take a short word from one of our sponsors. And thank you very much for returning. This next section talks about the affidavits of equality and chattel property that were presented in the book Living Free in the Feminazi World. I am going to read exactly what it says in the book into this audio recording, merely to allow people who want to listen to the MP3 to do so and get the full value out of it, rather than pointing you to the book. Of course, you can go read the book. The affidavits of equality and chattel property. Dear ladies, in my first book, Living Free in the Feminazi World, I invited women to complete an affidavit of lawful equality to a man or an affidavit of chattel property to a man if they could find a man to take that deal. The book was released in October 2010, and here we are in February 2014. There is not one woman who actually copied, updated and signed either such affidavit. This is proof beyond all doubt that women do not wish equality before the law to men. If you wished equality before the law to men, then you would customize to your own taste and sign one of these two affidavits and give it to your man as a gift. I have reproduced both affidavits in this document. I will also read them into the audio so that women who listen to this audio on MP3s can hear the words as they do other things, such as commute to their job, or even better, cook a good meal for their family in their well-stocked kitchen. A lot of women who listened to my personal videos told me that they liked listening to what I had to say while they were cooking or cleaning. These next two pages are reproduced directly from the book, Living Free in the Feminazi World, and they are my best efforts at providing a template for you to use. If you wish to demonstrate that you wish to be treated as equal, you can complete one of these. If you wish our assistance to complete one of these, we will do so for a standard service fee. After all, equal pay for equal work is what you stand for, right? You want us to do work for you, you have to pay us. So this is specifically from the book, copied directly from the book. Affidavit of lawful equality for a woman. This section contains a sample text for a woman to declare by way of affidavit her lawful equality to a man. Please note this includes waiving the benefits and privileges commonly associated with being a woman. Women have claimed equality for 40 years now, but if you ask women to actually write down what she means by that, you'll soon see that the picture gets real fuzzy really quickly. Well, this document is intended to make sure that this fuzziness is removed. This bonded affidavit is intended to be updated and customized by the woman who fills it out to explain exactly what she means by her claim of equality to a man. Any man has the right to demand any woman produce a copy of this affidavit at any time, or that it be kept online to be viewed by any man who wishes to know the lawful status of any woman at any point in time. If not produced, the man has a right to refuse interaction with the woman, and I claim this is required because Western women have, en masse, claimed equality but demanded privilege. It's time that men did not interact with any woman who is not willing to make a clear statement as to her lawful status. So there are the usual headings. Fiat justitia rauc collegium. I don't speak Latin, but it means let right be done though the heavens should fall. Notice to principal is notice to agent. Notice to agent is notice to principal. I, commonly addressed by the calling of Jane Doe, whatever, hereinafter the principal, in my correct public capacity as beneficiary to the original jurisdiction, being of majority in age, competent to testify, a self-realized, free, sentient woman, my yes be yes, my no be no, do state the truths and facts herein are of first-hand personal knowledge, true, correct, complete, not just true, correct, certain and not misleading, so help me God. This notice is addressed to all the men and women of God's creation, commonly known as planet Earth. Affidavit with respect to equality before the law. 1. Principal is of legal age and competent to testify. 2. Principal is of legal age and competent to make oath. 3. Principal has first-hand knowledge of the facts stated herein. 4. Principal has not seen or been presented with any material fact or evidence that shows that principal does not have the lawful right to make oaths of this affidavit. 5. Principal makes oath that she claims lawful equality with men of the land known as, and you can name your land. 6. Principal makes oath that should she stand accused of a crime, that being causing injury, harm or loss to any other human being, by way of a sworn affidavit and accompanying evidence, that she submits to the authority of a lawfully constituted court with a lawfully constituted jury of 12 men sworn to judge her case justly and fairly on a lawfully equal basis to any other person presented to such a jury. That is, I submit to jury trials as an oath. Principal makes oath that she will stand under the decision of the jury on the basis that any such decision must be unanimous and that any remedy statement rendered by the jury must be unanimous from the 12 men of the jury, meaning, if 12 men say I must make this remedy, I stand under the decision of those 12 men. 8. Principal makes oath that she will stand under the lawful axioms. All men and women are equal before the law. All men and women are innocent until proven guilty. Burden of proof is with the plaintiff. Principal makes oath that she waives the woman's privilege, that should she strike a man, that he will not strike her back. That's a privilege that she waives. Principal stands under the common male principle that to strike a man is to waive the protection of the law, such that the struck man may deal out any punishment he sees fit. That's how us men see things. Principal makes oath that she waives the woman's privilege, that should she be highly irritating and obnoxious to a man, that the man will not strike her. Principal stands under the common male principle that to be highly irritating and obnoxious to a man is to waive the protection of the law, such that the man being irritated may deal out any punishment he sees fit. That's what we do with men who are obnoxious and irritating. Principal makes oath that she waives the woman's privilege of preferential treatment with respect to national service and service in the armed services, meaning you go out and get killed. Principal makes oath that she may be called up and conscripted to serve in the armed forces in the defence of the nation, as have men for many years. You women were happy for men to be called up, drafted and conscripted. Are you willing to make oath that you will do that yourselves? Principal makes oath that she will under no circumstances provide support in any way, shape or form to any woman who refuses to declare by affidavit her lawful position with respect to equality to men. Principal is not concerned that a woman might choose equality or chattel property to a man. Principal is merely concerned that women clearly communicate said choice, and Principal will not support any woman who does not make a declaration by affidavit one way or the other. Basically saying, if a woman's not prepared to say in writing what it is, how it is she's going to live her life, I, this woman, do not support such women. 15. Principal makes oath that she will under no circumstances provide support to any endeavour of any woman who claims lawful equality by similar affidavit, but then takes advantage of men's habit of extended women's privileges, or participates in any activity where men are excluded or refused the opportunity to earn their living, notice earn their living, in competition with women based merely on sex. Principal states that this includes, but is not limited to, such items as women's tennis, which Principal denounces as sexist and discriminatory; women's golf, which Principal denounces as sexist and discriminatory; women's soccer, which Principal denounces as sexist and discriminatory; the teaching professions, which Principal denounces as sexist and discriminatory; the childcare industry, which Principal denounces as sexist and discriminatory; the practice of providing subsidies for women and other minorities, which Principal denounces as insulting to women and sexist and discriminatory against men. You could say that. It's up to you. This is a template. 16. Principal makes oath that he will under no circumstances accept any government grant or any government support that she did not compete for on a lawfully equal basis to men. Give up the gravy train ladies. 17. Principal makes oath that she will under no circumstances request that a man perform a routine task like changing a flat tire on a car, like changing a light bulb, merely to exercise the woman's privilege of being able to get a man to perform a task that she can perfectly well perform herself. Principal makes oath that she will perform such routine tasks herself or pay the man for his exertion of his efforts for such routine tasks. Are you willing to make oath that you will pay men to change your tires, pay men to change the light bulbs and things like that? Are you? 18. Principal makes oath that in all areas of her life, business or professional, private or social, she will at all times compete on a lawfully equal basis with men and waive and take no advantage of women's privileges commonly afforded to women by men. Principal states that this includes but is not limited to such things as the woman's privilege of being paid for on dates such as dinners, drinks, tickets to shows, travel, accommodation and similar. B. Being rated in business or professional performance higher than men based on sex rather than based on performance. Principal denounces the practice of more highly rating women based on sex as insulting to her and other women who wish to be treated as equal before the law to men. So they were the 18 suggested points. Principal makes oath that she bonds these oaths with the amount of such and such troy ounces of 99.99% pure gold. This bond amount to be forfeited to any person who can provide evidence to a de jure jury of breaking these oaths such that a jury decision is that the oaths were broken. So what that means is, if you are a woman and you make oath to be lawfully equal to men, and you make oath such that you'll give up these privileges, you will be lawfully equal, you will not accept offered extended privileges from men, you won't accept them, such that if you do accept them or if you do break any of these oaths, you waive your bond to the person who catches you breaking your oath. That can be processed through a jury trial if you deny that you broke your oath. Okay? That's what lawfully equal would look like. Now, the amount of the declaration is what the principal's oath is worth. And of course, if you have other ideas as to what should go in this affidavit, then please share. Then there is the signatory page, which I won't read through because it's just a signatory page. Yeah, you can read through that for yourself. But there is a signatory page where you would sign it, you would date it, and you would get 3 witnesses to say, yes, this woman made these oaths, so that there could be no question as to the validity of the affidavit. Now the next affidavit is quite short, so we will just continue on. Okay, so again, there is the first part of the affidavit, which I just said, so there's no point in repeating that. So we'll just read it from the affidavit with respect to a woman declaring herself the chattel property of a man, which you're free to do. You are free to declare yourself chattel property of a man, if you can get a man to buy that deal, because he becomes legally and lawfully responsible for you. If you are chattel property of a man and you go and steal something, he has to make remedy for it, right? So 1, principal is of legal age and competent to testify. 2, principal is of legal age and competent to make oath and waive rights. 3, principal has first-hand knowledge of the facts stated herein. 4, principal has not seen or been presented with any material fact or evidence that shows that principal does not have lawful right to make the oath and waive the rights noted in this affidavit. 5, principal makes oath that she claims to be the lawful chattel property of the man commonly called John Doe, who was born on the land known as wherever he was born. 6, principal makes oath that she waives all rights and vests all her God-given rights to the man commonly known as, say, John Doe. 7, principal makes oath that in any dispute of opinion, in any decision-making process, she will submit to the decision arrived at by the man commonly called John Doe and put her faith and trust in him that he will act in her best interest. As an oath, remember? What that's saying is, the woman is saying, I will submit to the decision of the man. I'm putting my faith and trust in him that he will act in my best interest. As an oath. Number 8, principal makes oath that any children that may ensue from the union with the man commonly called John Doe She waives all parental and ownership rights to the child to the man commonly called John Doe. Principal makes oath that in any dispute of opinion, in any decision-making process, with respect to raising any children that may ensue, she will submit to the decision arrived at by the man commonly called John Doe and put her faith and trust in him that he will act in the best interests of the children. So basically saying, the woman is saying, I submit to his decisions and I put my faith and trust in him that he will act in the best interests of the children. He will act in my best interest and in the best interest of the children. 9. Principal makes claim to the right to avail of traditional chivalry offered by men to the wives of their fellow men. So in this case, she's saying as chattel property, I claim all the traditional chivalry offered by men as my right because I have submitted to this man and I'm asking his peers to please extend chivalry to me. 10. Principal makes claim that she is desirous of the provision and protection of the men of her land, such they will make their best efforts to protect her at all times. This is men as unpaid bodyguards. Okay? She's saying, because I have submitted myself to this man as chattel property, I call on and claim that I am desirous of the provision and protection of the other men of my land, such that they will make their best efforts to protect me at all times, because I'm not equal. I'm not as capable of protecting myself as a man is, and if I should be attacked, I'm calling on the men around me, who may not even know me, unpaid bodyguards, to please protect me and provide for me, because I'm not equal. Okay, that's what it says. 11. Principal makes claim that she believes women are, on average, significantly smaller and weaker than men, and is desirous of claiming an obligation upon men to assist her when in need on the basis of her weaker and smaller physical build. So this point says, I, the woman, believe that women are, on average, smaller and weaker than men. And, that's a fairly well-established fact. It's quite reasonable to believe that. To believe that women are equal to men, despite the fact that they are on average smaller and weaker, is stupid and ludicrous. But because she's claiming that she is smaller and weaker than men, she's claiming that she is desirous of claiming an obligation, desirous of claiming an obligation. She cannot make the obligation. She's asking men to say, I claim this obligation. Are you willing to meet this obligation? So claiming an obligation upon men to assist her when in need on the basis of her weaker and smaller physical build. So a woman in this situation is saying, I accept that I am smaller and I am weaker than the average man. And in the situation where I am in need and I'm not able to do what it is that I need to do because I am smaller and weaker and not equal to a man, I claim an obligation on men to please protect me and provide for me when I am smaller and weaker. Okay? Now, of course, she cannot make the men live up to that claim. The men have a choice as to whether they will protect and provide, or whether they will do things for her because she's smaller and weaker. Men still have a choice as to whether they do that. But by claiming it on an affidavit, she's making it quite clear that she understands that she's smaller and weaker and would like some help, please. And then, of course, the principal makes oath that she bonds these oaths with the amount of however much gold she's prepared to put on the table, and this amount to be forfeit to any person who can provide evidence to a de jure jury of breaking these oaths, such that the jury decision is that the oaths were broken. And that amount is the declaration of what the principal's word is worth. And then again, there is a signature page. So, my dear readers and listeners, in this lesson you have been introduced to the concept that you can create an affidavit under common law whereby you declare your equality before the law to a man, or you declare that you are chattel property to a man. In return for some benefits, the man is then obliged by law to provide. Now, I can assure you that if you, as an individual woman, were to complete such an affidavit and make it public, you would be much more attractive to quality men. You would have made a you would have made a public statement of how you intend to interact with men, and you have bonded that statement with an amount of money, namely gold, to back up your claim that this is how you will act in the public. You will have also agreed to the jurisdiction of the Men's Business Association Law Services to settle any dispute over your affidavit. Simply put, if women continue to fail to document and issue such affidavits to the public as you have for the last 3 years and more, then quality men are correct in making the presumption that you do not wish equality. They will make the presumption you wish to continue to have the vast criminal bias in the legal system in your favour. Now, you may choose to retain your vast criminal bias in the legal system, especially the family law courts, but you can hardly expect quality men to want to marry you for doing so, and calling them names is not going to convince them of your sincerity if putting an affidavit in writing is beyond your willingness to do so. A part of writing this book is to give women the tools they need to start the long journey back to some level of credibility when they speak. These 2 affidavits are the first baby steps to start the long journey back to credibility. Western women, by hook or by crook, have to be taught that to be equal to men, the saying, "It is a woman's prerogative to change her mind," has to be transformed to the cultural norm of "a woman's word is her bond," just as today we have the cultural norm of "a man's word is his bond." The fact we are seeing young men raised by single mothers treat their word as garbage and not to be kept is neither here nor there. Those men who do not keep their word as their bond will be treated as such by other men. It is incumbent on women to step up to the level of "a woman's word is her bond," and not workable for men to sink to the level of "it is a man's prerogative to change his mind." My dear readers and listeners, this is your lesson for today. Thank you very much for listening.